tell nobody, but the fact.
Hello E-Scar friends. In this episode we're going to talk about a film titled Flight Risk. A thriller that tells the story of an air marshal, Madeline Harris, Michelle Dockery, who is assigned to escort a dangerous informant, Winston Topher Grace, across the Alaskan wilderness. However, what was supposed to be a routine mission turns into terror when the true identity of their pilot, Daryl Booth, Mark Wahlberg, is revealed as a hitman assigned to kill Winston. Madeline must fight to survive and land the plane safely while uncovering a much bigger conspiracy. Curious how exciting the movie is? Let's jump right into the storyline. The film opens by showing a man named Winston at home, looking very nervous. Suddenly, he is startled by the arrival of two police officers, and Winston is immediately handcuffed. Then, a beautiful female officer named Madeline arrives. She looks very pleased because she has finally captured the man she has been searching for all this time. Winston asks Madeline for a deal and pleads for legal protection. Madeline contacts headquarters and informs them that Winston has been arrested, but that he is asking for a deal.
What'd they say?
3 days later, Madeline was seen taking Winston to court. They traveled on a small plane, piloted by a man named Daryl. Before takeoff, Madeline called her superior, Van Sant, and informed him that Winston had not provided any information while in custody. Not long after, Daryl arrived and immediately told Madeline and Winston to get ready. He asked Madeline if she was sure she didn't want to sit in the back to keep an eye on Winston. However, Madeline replied that Winston was already handcuffed, so there was nothing to worry about. Before takeoff, Daryl remarked that he had never flown with a fugitive before. Suddenly, Winston objected, saying that he wasn't a fugitive but a witness cooperating with the government. Annoyed by Winston's constant talking, Madeline ordered him to keep quiet. She also told Daryl not to talk to Winston. Finally, they took off. But shortly after, the plane suddenly experienced turbulence. Madeline asked Daryl if his plane always had turbulence. Daryl told her to put on the communication headset. When she finally put on the headphones, Madeline was surprised to hear Daryl playing music to help ease her fear of flying. Meanwhile, Winston, who wasn't wearing a headset, struggled to call out to Daryl and Madeline. He also tried to reach for the phone in front of him, but because his hands were cuffed, he had difficulty. Madeline accidentally noticed a wound on Daryl's neck and asked, "Is your neck okay?" Daryl replied, "Yeah, it's fine, just a work accident." However, when he saw Winston still restrained, Daryl asked Madeline about it since Winston claimed they were on the same side. Madeline then explained that Winston had a fear of flying, or aerophobia. She also reminded Daryl not to trust Winston's words so easily. Suddenly, the plane they were on experienced a signal disruption and lost GPS. Daryl tried to reassure Madeline by saying that he was experienced flying that route. He told her the flight to Seattle would take about 75 minutes. But Madeline, feeling very worried, insisted that the flight should be cancelled. Daryl explained that if they turned back, they would most likely be delayed for several hours due to bad weather. He also assured Madeline that he would fly them safely since he had memorized the route. Hearing this, Madeline grew suspicious of Daryl because she had not yet told him the destination, yet he already knew. Suddenly, they were startled when a bird struck the plane. Daryl quickly increased the aircraft's altitude to avoid any more bird collisions. Meanwhile, Winston grew curious about something that looked like a pilot's license. He tried to grab the document using his feet. It turned out to be Daryl's pilot license, but the photo was different. Immediately, Winston tried to call out to Madeline to tell her that the pilot wasn't really Daryl. To avoid arousing Daryl's suspicion, Winston pretended to drop the item and asked Madeline to pick it up for him. Madeline, thinking Winston was only scared of flying, quickly tried to calm him down and assured him that everything would be fine. Daryl asked what was wrong with Winston, and Madeline replied that Winston felt like throwing up. Hearing that, Daryl immediately handed Winston a sick bag. As Daryl reached out with the bag, Madeline accidentally noticed blood on his shirt. She began to wonder if Winston had actually been trying to warn her about something. Madeline grew even more suspicious of Daryl. Earlier she had seen a wound on his neck, and now there was blood on his clothes. Madeline then asked how Daryl already knew the destination when she hadn't told him. Daryl calmly answered that he assumed Madeline wasn't from Alaska, so the most likely destination was Seattle. Still suspicious, Madeline asked Daryl to contact the control tower, ATC, via radio. Daryl tried, but because their flight path was passing through the mountains, the signal was blocked, and they failed to reach ATC. After that, Madeline attempted to trap Daryl by saying she had flown with a pilot named Janikovsky last week. Confidently, Daryl responded that he had flown with Janikovsky before, carrying nitrogen and welding equipment some time ago. Hearing this, Madeline immediately pointed out that the pilot who flew her at that time was a woman. At that moment, Madeline realized that Daryl was not the pilot assigned to fly her. She quickly drew her gun and aimed it at him. But Daryl, already on guard, immediately fought back. He managed to knock the gun from Madeline's hand, then grabbed a knife and threatened her to stay calm, assuring her he wasn't going to kill her. However, Madeline suddenly bit Daryl's hand, causing him to drop the knife, and they fought again. In the end, though, Daryl managed to strike Madeline hard enough to knock her unconscious.
You wanna play rough?
Daryl then told Winston that his boss, Moretti, was furious and wanted Winston dead. Terrified, Winston tried to convince Daryl that he had never given any information to the police. In his panic, Winston offered $1 million in cryptocurrency, as long as Daryl didn't kill him. However, Daryl wasn't interested in the offer, especially since he didn't even understand crypto. Winston then explained that Moretti had a lot of money and distributed it to many people. One of the recipients was a man living in Sankati, who received $25,000 every month. Winston kept trying to persuade Daryl, but Daryl still refused the offer because he didn't want to betray Moretti. As Winston continued rambling, Daryl suddenly slapped him. It was then revealed that Winston was an accountant who had embezzled Moretti's money and bribed someone to keep Moretti's crimes from being exposed. After that, Daryl prepared to finish off Madeline. However, Madeline suddenly regained consciousness and stunned Daryl with a taser, knocking him out. Seeing this, Winston panicked even more. Madeline tried to calm him down, but Daryl suddenly regained consciousness and attacked him again. Another fight broke out, until Madeline managed to stun Daryl once more. But as Daryl kept shoving her, Madeline accidentally pushed the aircraft's control lever, causing the plane to dive sharply. Madeline quickly pulled the plane's control lever until it stabilized. She then activated the autopilot mode. After that, she tried to unlock the handcuffs but struggled. Winston offered to help. Madeline, still traumatized from being deceived by Daryl, initially refused Winston's help. However, because of the difficulty, she eventually asked Winston to assist her. Both Madeline and Winston were confused since they couldn't fly the plane while Daryl was still unconscious. Madeline then searched Daryl's pocket and found a photo of his assassination target. It turned out that not only Madeline and Winston were targets, but also Winston's mother. Winston panicked when he learned that his mother was in danger. Madeline urged Winston to stay calm and focused, because there was nothing they could do until they landed. After that, Madeline asked Winston to help her move Daryl to the back and cuff him.
Come on, really?
For him.
Winston then asked if he could sit next to Madeline. Madeline responded by asking how Winston knew about Daryl. Winston showed her the pilot's license he had found under the seat. Not staying idle, Madeline tried to call for help and successfully made contact. She then reported the plane's altitude and location. However, as they flew over the mountains, their signal was immediately disrupted and the connection was lost. Winston said that the pilot should have been the one to report the situation. Then Madeline remembered that she was supposed to make a call using the satellite phone. At last, Madeline managed to get through to Van Sant. She informed Van Sant about the situation that was happening. Van Sant was asked to immediately send help and also dispatch officers to Winston's mother's house. Surprisingly, Daryl regained consciousness and suddenly laughed when he heard that Madeline needed a pilot. Madeline asked Daryl to show her how to fly the plane, but Daryl refused and started joking instead. Suddenly, Madeline raised her gun and prepared to shoot Daryl. However, Daryl warned that if Madeline shot him, the bullet would pierce the plane's fuel tank and cause an explosion. Not long after, Madeline was contacted by a pilot named Hassan, who guided her on how to fly the plane. Hassan asked Madeline to report the plane's altitude and speed. However, in a moment of panic, Hassan instead joked around and teased Madeline. Strangely, that actually made Madeline feel a little calmer. Hassan then instructed Madeline to slowly pull the plane's yoke to the left and then pull it slightly again before steering the plane southeast. At last, Madeline managed to stabilize the plane. Meanwhile, Daryl kept trying to break free from his handcuffs but failed. However, he got an idea when he saw his knife that had been thrown during his fight with Madeline. Daryl then tried to provoke Winston by saying that after he killed him, he would take a picture of Winston and send it to Winston's mother. Winston realized that Daryl knew his mother's address. Madeline then asked Winston if Moretti had spies in the department. Winston replied that the only person he had told about his mother's address was the judge when he filed the witness protection report. At that moment, Madeline thought that maybe Moretti had someone on the inside within the police force. Shortly after, Van Sant called Madeline and told her that he had sent backup. Van Sant also said that the police had found the real Daryl, who had been murdered in his apartment. Madeline then asked Van Sant who else knew about Winston. Van Sant replied that only he and the judge knew about Winston. However, Van Sant added that it was possible someone else had accessed that information. Without realizing it, the plane they were on almost crashed into a mountain. They panicked, and Madeline immediately pulled the cockpit up. However, since it was already too late, the plane ended up crashing into a mound of ice. Fortunately, they only hit the ice park, so the plane was still able to fly again. That incident actually made Daryl happy because he enjoyed the adrenaline rush. Daryl was also pleased that Madeline didn't kill their prisoner, Winston. Suddenly, Madeline was shocked because Daryl knew about her past. It was then revealed that Madeline had once lost a prisoner, which eventually got her dismissed from field duty. Daryl tried to play with Winston's psychology, warning him to be careful and even persuading him to fight back against Madeline. Madeline immediately approached Daryl and asked who told him about her past while hitting him. It turned out that Daryl knew a lot about Madeline's past. He kept talking to provoke Madeline's anger. Madeline hit Daryl again until Daryl finally managed to get hold of her glasses, which he would use to unlock his handcuffs.
I miss our little moment. Oh, don't stop. Come on.
What Moretti does come for you.
Meanwhile, Winston was terrified and asked Madeline to explain what Daryl had said. Madeline recounted that 2 years ago, she met a woman named Maria who had run away after a fight with her boyfriend, a mafia member. At that time, Madeline violated security protocol by allowing Maria to take a shower without supervision. Then suddenly, someone threw a Molotov cocktail into the bathroom, and Maria was killed.
You on a desk.
Because of this incident, Madeline was dismissed from field duty. After telling her story, Madeline immediately contacted Van Sant and informed him that the leak came from headquarters and that there was a spy inside. Van Sant immediately asked how Madeline was so sure about that. Madeline replied that Moretti's pilot knew everything about her past. Then Madeline asked what her superior, Collet Redgate, thought about the operation. Van Sant explained that Collet Redgate knew nothing about it and that he himself would be more careful in giving out information to anyone, fearing that what Madeline said was true. Madeline then tried to contact Collet Redgate, but since he was busy, she couldn't reach him, and her call was answered by his assistant, Jenny. Madeline asked Jenny to immediately inform Collet Redgate because it was an emergency. Not long after, Madeline finally managed to get through to Collet Redgate and directly told him that Moretti had a mole inside headquarters, Director Van Sant. Hearing this, Collet Redgate fell silent and reminded Madeline that Van Sant was the one who had helped her return to field duty. Collet Redgate then asked Madeline to call him directly at his home number in Sankaty. Shortly afterward, they spotted the coastline. Madeline immediately contacted Hassan. Hassan instructed Madeline to slowly turn the plane to the left and follow the shoreline eastward. Suddenly, Madeline remembered that Winston had mentioned bribing someone with $25,000 a month. Madeline asked where Winston had been sending the money. Winston replied that he sent the money to someone's house in the Sankaty area. Hearing this, Madeline quickly contacted Van Sant and told him that Collet Redgate had leaked the operation. Madeline apologized for not trusting Van Sant earlier and for instead contacting Collet Redgate because she had suspected Van Sant. Madeline was furious with herself because her recklessness had made the case even more complicated. She then contacted Hassan again to report her position so that help could arrive quickly. At that moment, Madeline said she had just passed a shipwreck. Shortly after, Hassan reported that the rescue team had changed course and found Madeline's location. Without them realizing it, Daryl had managed to free himself from his handcuffs. He immediately stabbed Winston and strangled Madeline.
See a face turn this color before? Huh? Is that better?
However, when Daryl let his guard down, he was suddenly attacked by Winston and thrown back. Then, Daryl fired at Madeline, but not a single bullet hit her. In the end, Madeline managed to grab a flare gun and immediately shot Daryl. After that, she struck Daryl repeatedly until he finally lost consciousness.
Melihat hal itu, Madeline langsung bergegas untuk mengobati Winston.
Okay, it's fine. Listen to me. Listen to me. You're not dying. All right? Come.
I'm feeling a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Keep pressure on. Thank you, by the way.
Not long after, Hassan contacted Madeline and asked about her condition. Madeline told him that Winston had been stabbed. Hassan immediately arranged for a medical team to rescue Winston. After that, Hassan informed her that in about 20 minutes, Madeline would be landing. Seeing Winston's worsening condition, Madeline asked for a way to make the plane arrive sooner because she didn't want Winston to die. Hassan mentioned that she could get there faster, but the landing would be very difficult. Madeline agreed to take that risk and asked Hassan to tell her what to do. Hassan immediately instructed Madeline to pull the fuel mixture lever and push the throttle lever all the way forward. Winston apologized for dragging Madeline into the mess. In his dying state, Winston told Madeline that when he was still in school, he had been a very smart kid who could do anything. Winston said that he could have gotten a better job but instead chose dirty and risky work. He then asked Madeline to go to his mother's house and tell her that he had done something good.
I wanted it easy. What's going on? About moving numbers around on a computer. But I knew it was happening. I'm so fucking sorry.
A few moments later, Madeline called Jenny to connect her with Van Sant. However, Kalarik G was the one who answered the phone. Magellan could only assume that something had happened to Van Sant. Claret G then said that Van Sant had died after being hit by a car while leaving the office. Suddenly, Madeline broke down in hysterical tears and said that Claret G had been working with Moretti. Magellan was furious and vowed to put Claret G in prison.
Careful!
Listen to
You
me.
be fucking holy fuck you! I'll see you in full!
Not long after, Hassan called back and told her that Madeline would be landing soon. He instructed Madeline to put on her headphones and set the radio to frequency 1215. After that, Madeline tried to wake Winston, who looked very pale from losing so much blood. But suddenly, from behind, Daryl, who had regained consciousness, asked why Madeline hadn't killed him. In a state of utter desperation, Winston saw the rescue plane that had arrived and guided them to land safely. Shortly after, Madeline finally spotted the runway. It was clear that Daryl kept trying to break free from his handcuffs until his fingers broke and his skin peeled off.
Deputy.
Finally, Daryl managed to free his hands from the handcuffs. He immediately attacked Madeline and tried to fly the plane again because he didn't want to be captured. Madeline, who had retrieved her gun, without hesitation shot Daryl until he collapsed onto the floor.
I'm here.
Hearing the gunshots, Hassan immediately asked about Madeline's condition, worried that something had happened to her. Madeline told him that the plane's engine had stopped because it had run out of fuel. However, Hassan said that this was good news because when Madeline landed, the plane would not easily catch fire. Hassan kept guiding Madeline. Then, after learning that Madeline was about to land, Hassan ended the call and said he would meet her at the airport. The plane finally managed to land, but the impact was so severe that Daryl was thrown out and ultimately killed. Madeline kept trying to control the plane and finally managed to land safely. She immediately woke Winston and was overjoyed that he was still alive.
We did.
Not long after, the police arrived, and Madeline immediately ordered them to evacuate Winston. At last, Madeline could feel relieved for having landed safely and on time, ensuring that the tragedy from the past did not happen again. There, Hassan was already waiting for her, looking very happy that Madeline had landed safely. However, Madeline suddenly noticed a police officer named Milko making a phone call and then getting into the ambulance that was carrying Winston. All of a sudden, Madeline ran straight toward the ambulance. It became clear that Winston was about to be killed, but Madeline quickly fired her gun, and Milko was finally killed. It turned out that Milko had been on the phone with Claret G, who had ordered him to finish off Winston. Madeline immediately took Milko's phone and told Claret G that she would capture him soon. And with that, the film ended.